Hi, I'm Marc Lesnick, and this is the post-conference review for the 40th International iDate. The conference has ended, the room is cleared out.
The Hoover's going?
And yes, exactly. They're vacuuming up here as we speak, and I'm with Mark Brooks. The interesting part, and we put a press release out of it, was this is the first time ever, after doing 40 events in iDate, this is the first time we've had the top 5 dating sites all in one room.
Yeah,
that is, we had the CEO of Zeusk, we had eHarmony senior vice presidents and executives, we had Plenty of Fish, Osmium Partners, which is basically JDate, and we had Match, including people from Tinder, at the event. So in addition to that, and if that wasn't enough, we had the top dating site in Japan, top dating site in Brazil, top dating site in Australia. So this was a who's who compendium of both dating sites and executives in the business. This was certainly one of the most memorable conferences I think I've seen.
I think what is also unique about this, we had the top players here, but we also had key contributions from the matchmaking industry as well. And these are the people that are on, they're the feet on the street. These are the people who are talking to the singles and getting a feel for what they're missing from our services. I mean, their business is rising. Why is that? It's because people are realizing that it's worthwhile spending money on dating.
There's two elements there. One is that the matchmaking part of the business, correct, the industry part is growing and growing substantially. That is in large part to, I think now what we determined from the final panel is too many dating sites, too many dating options. You give people too many options, they don't want it. The other is a cultural change where people don't want to go online in the sense of going through all the profiles and investing the amount of time in finding someone in addition to the chatting. So they'd rather have some service take care of that for them. And you have both matchmaking and even virtual dating assistance market growing as well. But we had it covered at iDate, in terms of matchmaking for a couple of years now, starting back in 2006 or 7 with Julie Furman, and it's been growing steadily over the years. Only in the last 2 years did we see an explosive growth, and this year, no questions asked. But matchmakers used to represent about 5% of the attendance at iDate. Now it's significantly higher. It's not a majority, but it's nothing to sneeze at. And on top of it, it's larger than 5 by a lot. It's probably more than 10. I'd say more towards 15. eHarmony is now getting into that side of the business. So clearly, the matchmakers have been asking to work with the dating sites. We're seeing that now starting to happen, and so we're seeing this cohesion between the two. What used to be two separate microeconomies now starting to work together.
And we welcome that. That it really improves the dialogue.
Oh, clearly. So Google, Tom Kershaw, you were there for that session.
I saw some. I think the key. One of the things that he said which struck me was that right now there are various, we think of the net as a bunch of machines, but ultimately it's going to be thought of as an infinity machine, if you like. It's going to have all the processing power, all the memory that's needed, and that's the way the cloud is going to develop, which is quite a shift in mindset, really.
He's a combination of lead tech for Google, so it's like getting into the heart of Google. He was on stage. If you wanted to meet a guy at Google that can get things done, this was the guy. There were people desperate to meet him for various reasons, in addition from dating related things, but also personal and other business reasons. But also he's a futurist in many respects. He's able to see where things were going, and he's not only looking at it like it's a pie-in-the-sky thing, he actually knows these are the tools that you would use to put together now to make this happen much, much sooner.
I think one thing that struck the audience was the fact that Snapchat doesn't have their own IT department. They're entirely in the cloud, which I think one member of the audience, Jonathan mentioned.
Jonathan Crustley was in shock. And then, of course, you had this is now your 10th year, I think?
10th year, Well, it's the 40th conference, and I've been to, I think I spoke at 30, didn't speak at the first one, so 36 of them I spoke at. I missed 3, and I didn't speak at the first one, so 36.
So this is your 36th presentation, and your 10th State of the Industry presentation. Okay, so you gave a summary of what happened in 2014. What do you got?
Well, look, the main thing that we've all experienced is a landslide shift towards mobile. The writing was on the wall years ago. Matches numbers, for example, 82% of all their logins are on mobile at this stage, and that's, a good proportion of that's coming from Tinder, of course. Without Tinder, it goes down to 67% of all of their logins. So there's no question in the room now that we're dealing with mobile. It's very, very important to start monetizing more effectively on mobile. Match.com, case in point, have worked diligently towards improving their conversion factors, and they've improved their conversion, their monetization by 50% over the last 6 months specifically. So we also looked at smart networks, the public companies, their numbers. Smart networks I'm more bullish about now. They've been through the ringers. Osmium, I think on the title on one of the slides, Osmium nailed smart networks. And indeed, they needed a nailing, unfortunately. I think they needed a bit of a shake-up. They've had that. I spoke to some smart people here now, and I think they're headed for the right, onto the right track.
JDate's a product with an intense loyalty. They're not aware, the people that use the product are not aware of what goes on with management and things like that, so that's their advantage. And it's very fortunate. It's a product that's very hard to kill. It's just going to keep going. It just needs good management.
Very visible company. You know, we consider that we need to get more investment money into this industry, and one of the first places that people look at if they're interested in investing in the industry is they look at the performance of the public companies, which has generally over the last 2-3 years underperformed the market slightly. So there's room for improvement there. Of course, Zeus finished, they didn't do their IPO in the end, and they cited the fact that Care.com and Angie's List were underperforming. They didn't do very well. But ultimately, it's just a drop-off in their numbers, I guess. And they consequently laid off 15% of the workforce, got a new CEO. So kind of an interesting time. Because of the shift towards mobile, we've got a lot more pressure to try and monetize on mobile. And it'll sure help when Tinder starts charging. And of course, they're going to be charging, they expect, per their earnings call, they expect to make $75 million a year extra from Tinder Plus once it's launched. And the testing price points of $2 to $20 a month, which I thought was rather interesting, that they're going to a month-to-month model. I rather thought that they would go with a pay-as-you-go model, given that their younger audience, I know that younger audience prefers to have, virtual micropayments and smaller, pay-as-you-go, rather like Lava Life in the past. We usually find that works well with the younger audience. So
that create another market opportunity, and someone will fill the more.
It's going to set the precedent, and once that sets the precedent, the rest of the industry will have to react and be able to monetize, and that I think will reset the trajectory of the industry. I think one of the concerns that I have for the industry is that we need to show more authenticity and be able to validate, verify rather, profiles and show that they're real and active. I think we also need to do more branding work. And I think one of the factors with our industry is that we give our users privacy, which is simultaneously empowering, and also it really makes people behave in funny ways. They tend to behave sort of like showing up on dates. If there's zero impact or cost, or if it doesn't impact their reputation, they're not necessarily going to let somebody know if they're not going to show up on a date. They're just not going to respond later on, and that's hugely detrimental to the experience of online dating. No shows on dates, for example, and there's really no disincentive right now. So I see that as another missing piece. People's reputations need to be somewhat impaired, but the problem with that is that then the dating site that is showing that slightly impaired profile, slightly impaired reputation, is just not going to keep that person around. So an interesting product I thought was the grade from Snap Interactive. And so the way the grade works is people are graded based on the quality and the quantity of their communication, and they can get an A to an F ultimately. So if they get an F, which is about 5% of the population on the grade, then they're kicked off the site. So that is an accountability system that works quite well on a dating site. I think that idea could catch on. I'd like to see that idea catch on, because I think it would demand more of our users, and that can only be good for the communities of people who are committed to the process, committed to showing up for dates and behaving with some etiquette.
We had a panel on dating behavior in tech. Michael McQuown and Dr. David Buss from the University of Texas were at this event. Michael noticed something and called me about it over the summer, so we decided to make a topic on this, where he's noticed that less people are showing up for dates, and that no-show rate, the percentage of no-show rate, he felt from his personal numbers had gone up substantially from previous years. And while there's no professional studies or anything like this, he was going based on his personal experiences and experiences with discussions with other individuals. He felt he saw a potential trend going on that could charm of the dating industry. And the reason why is the following. If people are not showing up for dates, in other words, you pay for a service, or even if it's a free service, it doesn't matter, and you have, for argument's sake, during the course of a month, 10 dates, 8 of them don't show up. You will see less value in wasting your time on this service, whether it's free or not, and consider leaving it. So from a revenue standpoint, this could harm the industry. So we decided to say, okay, let's cover the topic and let's see what happened. We moderated it.
Yes. I think I was most pleased to have Dr. David Buss on the panel. I mean, he's a world-leading evolutionary psychologist. So I think the conclusion to the conversation was that we've got a problem, we need to fix it by showing some kind of reputational transparency. We don't have a solution right now. We do defend people's privacy. But that's, on the one hand, we're doing a great job of defending the privacy, but on the other hand, we're severely impaired because a few people are souring the experience. Another area.
But dating sites, when challenged about this, they say, we know nothing about this, this isn't happening. They're saying Michael's inaccurate or they're unaware of this going on.
We don't have a proper feedback loop. We don't know. And that's one of the problems. We don't know when people are showing up on dates. The most that a user can do is flag a profile. And for a user to flag a profile saying he can show up on a date, or she can show up on a date, doesn't really get much attention from the industry, does it? I mean, it's a reputational issue that has completely been overlooked by the industry.
Dating fraud detection technologies has improved. Also, services that are coming to the industry offering to protect the consumer and also protect the merchant against fraud, not just financial fraud, but other forms of romance scams and romance fraud have also, we've seen more and more over the years. People like Wayne May from romancescams.com, he attended this event, and also as we saw, the Federal Trade Commission was at this event, so I'm kind of curious what your take on it was with the FTC there.
The long and the short of it is they're paying more attention to the internet dating industry. They want to hold us to a higher standard. They want real sites with real profiles, and if you're running a site that doesn't have real profiles, if you're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of users, then they are more determined than ever to have you show up on their radar, and they're quite prepared to action. And they've shown that with JDI dating. They had a $616,000 judgment on them not too long ago. And what was interesting is that was based on the amount of activity.
ROSCA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
Reliable Online Secure Commerce Act.
Yeah.
ROSCA was one of them. And we actually had a separate session on payments covering ROSCA as well, which if you're in dating, you need, and you're doing business in the United States, you need to look this up, ROSCA, and make sure you're compliant with that. Very important. The Federal Trade Commission is very active now. That was the second time they issued a penalty for an online site, not just dating, but an online site on ROSCA. And they're going with teeth after companies that are not complying with this. The other thing, too, is that Steve Baker did address the industry 2 years ago, in 2013, right here in Vegas at iDate. And you can look back, if you want to look back, you can look back at our post-conference review, and you'll see that review where, you know, he did say quite clearly, the industry, do these things to clean up your act or else. And so when he came here, he said, this is an example of an or else.
The thing that surprised me most was he said that in Australia, they're putting together statistics to be able to probably show there are more suicides from scam victims in Australia than there are murders.
Oh, well, actually, there are very few murders in Australia to begin with. That would be an interesting statistic. The other thing, too, is if you need an experience, and not just, again, contact Wayne May at Scam Survivors. He's talked to so many victims, and he's tried to prevent so many suicides himself, and I think he's saved people's lives. So, yeah, when you get it at a personal level, it changes your perspective on this whole part of the business. So Grant Langston, the VP at eHarmony or EH Plus, the matchmaking portion of it, was at the event. We're pleased to have him, great guy, and gave a presentation on where they see where they're going with this new platform. What did you see?
The long and the short of it is eHarmony Plus is a positive contribution to the bottom line at this stage. It's not a major contribution. However, I was intrigued with the way they do matching. They do 12 to 17 introductions during the year, and the introductions are to people who hit 80% of the criteria that are laid out, which is pretty damn good. 80% is really... Also, the caliber of the people that they're hiring seems very high, and I think that's only good for the reputation of the matchmaking industry. How do we improve the reputation of matchmaking? Because it's too easy to get into to become a matchmaker. Everybody can become a matchmaker. So I think the fact that eHarmony Plus is raising the bar.
We're starting to see standards across the board. Even the IDCA, their certification course that they have is the highest attendance ever. So yeah, you're starting to see more people want to be certified in some way or another.
Yeah.
So the OPW interview this year was with Andrei Bronetskiy, CEO of Wamba, and also known in Russia as Mamba. And it was great to have him here because it's pretty rare to get him out to our U.S. events. And in my mind, he's one of the most intelligent people in the industry.
One of the most innovative.
And innovative. Yes, he was one of the first people to invent basically private label dating, if you will. And not many people know that, but he was one of the early players in that market. So I felt
freemium.
And freemium too.
Gifting.
Yes, that's correct. So
many years ago, 2005, 2006.
Yeah, the list can go on there. So we felt it was very good to have him up here and Marc Lesnick interviewing. Now that entire interview is online. It is on YouTube and Vimeo as well, so you can search on his name and see the entire interview. Thomas Edwards at the Professional Wingman gave also a presentation on what we called Wingman Under Attack, or the state of Wingman. And that's a unique niche within the dating advice business. However, something unique had happened around the February time in 2014, where Meetup, which is where most of these wingman groups existed, there were meetup groups with tens of thousands of members, were overnight just eliminated. And the reason why is that Meetup had received somewhat of a protest, that it was believed that the wingman model was preying upon women. And so all of these groups were eliminated overnight. So these groups have moved to other places, and so that's where Thomas Edwards discussed where that was heading. We also had a track in a lot of international markets, Russia, Australia, Brazil. In the case of Brazil, it was the CEO, Marcus Veira, of Namoro Online, one of the largest dating sites in Brazil, who talked about the market. And to no surprise to us, the subject of payments came up as the same issue came up in Brazil, boletas and things like that for payments. And so everyone was kind of curious and interested in how to get into the market, but when they realized that payments was just a little harder than normal, that became a bone of contention people wanted to discuss. As for the Australian dating market, Dave Heysen from Oasis spoke. Originally we wanted our SVP to speak, Glennis Carroll. Well, Oasis owns it. Okay, so I went to Dave and I said, Dave, can you speak? And he said, sure. So now he's certainly one of the largest players in the Australian market.
But Dave is the CEO of RSVP now.
Correct. And so he gave a lot of insight as to how sites like Tinder, for example, is boosting his revenues right now. He's also moving over to freemium and other business models as well.
So we had Justin Parfitt speaking from HeyLets, and he's been working, well, he actually founded and started Fastlife.com, which was sold to Plenty of Fish. And since that acquisition, he's been building a company called HeyLets.
To have Justin here to see, hey, what are you working on now? What's new? And he's working on the social discovery application called HeyLets.
Yeah, is it social discovery? He was actually saying the reason why social discovery is an entirely broken misnomer and the entire problem with social discovery is you can't get to critical mass. The level of critical mass that you need to do serendipity is too massive for any company to ever really get to meaningfully. So he was citing HeyLite and At the Pool. At the Pool has pivoted recently. I mean, you think of HeyLite. I mean, HeyLite, he cited the example of two people in the vicinity that like music. Oh boy, okay, so that's it. That's the level of critical mass that they can deliver someone else who likes music to your doorstep.
Punk and classic.
I don't see an advantage to internet dating with that model at all, unfortunately. And essentially, women are creeped out by the location aspect. So what he's done is he's built a site which really builds on what Foursquare's done. And the idea is that people don't want to necessarily go to a good place. They want to have excellent experiences. So his entire service is built on sharing excellent experiences with friends. And that makes an awful lot of sense. I think that's kind of the next step on from Foursquare, which is rather flat at this stage from what I understand. So I think that was a nice lesson to the industry. People discovery is kaput, and he's got something which has a bit of legs. Because people, there's a missing element in what we do is that we're not really helping people out with dates. We're not helping people get outside and do something interesting, except for how about we? Well, of course, they raised money and they sold to Match.com, and so that shows some level of success, I think. but it's a missing element in what we do. We're not helping users find stuff to do as well. Actually, there's Lavendar in the audience as well. They've got an interesting app, which seems to work quite well for both singles and couples, because they're curating, again, preferences, like favorite foods, for example. So I can go on Lavendar, and I can say, okay, I know my wife likes this food at this particular restaurant, and I know that for the future. It's stored in the call for me, so I can take her out to the same place for the same food once she tells me that preference. Lovely idea, lovely idea.
So we had the 6th annual iDate Awards, 6 years.
Yeah.
And
best dating site went to Match. Best mobile site went to Tinder.
Most innovative company went to Zeus.
Yeah.
And we had the CEO of Zeus up there. Best dating software went to Dating Pro out of Russia. And they were very happy and proud to get the award. And actually they came all the way down from Russia to pick it up. And, hey, you deserved it. You won the award.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well done to everybody. The awards will be announced on OBW, and we've got the press release, right?
Press release went out this morning.
And everybody's got some very nice shiny awards to put up in their greeting rooms as guests come through. Well done.
Well, actually, with the awards, it's interesting because I've had a lot of conversations with people in the industry about it, and some people may not know this, but if you walk into Zeus's headquarters, the first thing you see at the reception counter used to be 2 iDate awards, now 3. When you walk into eHarmony's headquarters, they have 1 or 2, I believe, iDate awards. There are other companies as well. It's the first thing you see when you walk into them. Final panel session.
Quite heated. Not crazy, but
not crazy.
Quite heated. We covered some good territory, didn't we? We talked about mobile, free, matchmakers.
Another nugget that came out of this, quiet little thing. I don't want to say it was buried quickly, but some people may have picked up on this, maybe others didn't. But one individual talked about Ashley Madison and how he believed there's a percentage at Ashley Madison of a married individual who is looking to have an affair and actually follows through with it. But he believed a higher percentage actually would be a married individual who's just looking for a fantasy of this. And he believes that that was where more of the revenue in reality was being generated, and that there was no real follow-through on it. It was just a fantasy. And some seem to pick up on it, that it seemed to be some little golden nugget in the dating industry, that there might be, this is something really unique. But then it was kind of hushed quietly very quickly.
At the end of the day, sometimes people are missing emotional support in relationships. And they're also missing physicality. And so the promise of physicality and the emotional support is what is really being fulfilled through these particular sites.
The point there is the online separation where you can fantasize about something, but not actually have to do anything about it. And so that is where that was the most interesting, because that technically, as far as a revenue perspective, be 100% profit and keep customer retention at nearly an all-time high, if that's correct.
The metrics certainly show it. They've increased in size quite significantly over the last year over year, massive growth. I'm quite surprised to see in the top 10. As we talked about, is the industry up or down? The consensus was it was up. Well, I was more moderate on it for a change. I thought that, I'm not sure about that really.
Flat, yeah.
But everybody thought it was up. Everybody always thinks it's up.
I think it's up because you look at this economy, this economy is going north in the United States. It's going up. And so, a lot of companies that were hurting for a while, they're due for a bump. If mobile does hurt that, then yeah, but they'll have to be creative on how they create the revenue. However, nevertheless, on the freemium level, again, if the economy is getting better, and people don't want to waste their time with things, then they are willing to pay for freemium products or more advanced services. I also see matchmaking also improving substantially. Anything that improves time and provides a service, I see will improve as long as the economy is strong. So this year we're going to have Beijing in May, and back to China. We haven't been there since 2007.
Which is a combination of mobile and Asian markets.
The market we know to a certain degree has radically changed from what we saw in 2007, without a doubt. Zhuyan, who didn't exist back then, is the largest.
Oh my God, 8 years.
And so we need to come back. There are a lot of major players there, and we'll be addressing the market, both English and in Mandarin as well. So if you're speaking English and going and afraid that they're only speaking in a Chinese language, no, you'll be fine. As for London, yeah, we'll be doing it most likely after EdTech, and they will have also a matchmaking track there, led by Genevieve Zulana.
We also voted on whether we should go to Miami or Vegas, and which one won?
Vegas next year. I woke up the dead on that one. All right, good. Miami next year. We're going to try for Miami next year. There's a resounding roar that that's where everybody wants to go back to, and fine, we hear you.
Rock and roll, Mark. Well done.
Thank you.